Hi everyone! Today we'll be talking about one of my favorite artists, as you may be able to tell by the shirt. We're talking Beck. Now, I've had the pleasure of spending the last 2 weeks listening to his discography to come up with the cream of the crop. I'm calling this, Undeniably, the top 10 best Beck songs. And just to stir things up a little bit, I'll have my pick for an overrated song at the end. But in the meantime, let's get to the top 10. At number 10, we have Dreams from Colors. As you probably could gather from Beck's genre-hopping discography, he lived a very bohemian existence. He dropped out of formal education after middle school, only to busk at parks and even on crosstown buses in Los Angeles. He moved to New York City to couch surf and play among the anti-folk movement, only to tumble back to LA and record a generation-defining anthem on a lark. Many years later, in 2015, he would win a Grammy for Album of the Year. Despite being labeled the slacker icon, it should have been clear that Beck had a determined work ethic and a restless creative drive. Shortly after the big Grammy win, Beck released Dreams, a single from his next album. That album, Colors, had been recorded simultaneously, even though its upbeat electro-pop was basically the polar opposite of Morning Phase's delicate acoustic folk soundscapes. Co-produced by Greg Kurstin, who had huge pop success with Sia's Chandelier and Adele's Hello, the duo really aimed to bring Beck back to the charts, with state-of-the-art sonics and giant catchy hooks. Overall though, Beck said the main focus was to create an album that was really fun to play live. Dreams is a bass-heavy rocker with big arena energy. Kurstin and Beck play nearly every instrument on the album, and the arrangement is meticulous but far from sterile. Partly inspired by MGMT, a band who no doubt took cues from Beck himself, it features an electric feel synthesizer line and the return of his silky falsetto. Halfway through, the 4-on-the-floor dance burner, the guitar gets cranked up to 11, and it morphs into a psychedelic freakout with peace sign harmonies before the beat kicks back in to the final fist-pumping sing-along chorus that features a choir of Beck Hansons repeating the title, planting it deep in your subconscious. Released more than 20 years into his career, Dreams is another Beck classic, full of carefully engineered pop pleasures and contagious wild-card vitality. At number 9, we have Chemtrails from Modern Guild. In 2007, there were few producers hotter than Brian Burton, aka Danger Mouse, and he and Beck were casually acquainted as several of Beck's bandmates had worked on Burton's side project, Gnarls Barkley. After formally getting into a studio, the pair really hit it off, bonding over obscure records and rapidly finishing 2 tracks in 2 days. With the incredible length the information took to complete, that speed was incredibly appealing, and Beck originally pictured a brief 10-track album with 2-minute songs that would be captured as quickly as their initial sessions. That, however, would not be the case. Instead, the duo obsessed over the arrangements, and several short songs progressively grew longer, as Beck said he tried to fit 2 years of songwriting into 2.5 months. He later recalled the intense schedule of working 10 weeks straight without a single day off, with sessions pushing into 4 or 5 in the early morning hours. The songs would begin as bare-bones sketches with acoustic guitar and a drum beat, and the tag team of Danger Mouse and Beck would gradually embellish the canvas, playing nearly every instrument on Modern Guild. Chemtrails was the first single released. It's a moody, slow burner, somewhere between shoegaze and psychedelia. Icy synthesizers and stray, dissonant piano paint a hazy ambiance, as Beck sings, "You and me watching the sky for the chemtrails," as if he's looking to the sky for hidden messages. It's the only song on the record where Beck's longtime drummer, Joey Warnaker, appears and he puts on a clinic. His tumbling drum fills amp up the song's slightly disconcerting drama. Chemtrails is eerily apocalyptic, sonic shape-shifting, perfectly suited for a laser light show and the highlight on an underrated album. At number 8, we have Cell Phones Dead from The Information. Beck and producer Nigel Godrich had worked together on 2 mellow albums, Mutations and Sea Change. For the third collaboration, Godrich said he wanted to do a hip-hop record, and The Information is very much a record where the machismo mingles with the meditative. Beck would refer to it as introspective hip-hop. The journey to make the album would take a while. The duo began working on the LP in 2003, around the same time as Guero, but it would take 3 years to complete. Beck would say while sessions started painless, they turned painful, as the album was recorded and then remade 2 more times. The pair were meticulous, going over each track with a fine-tooth comb. Their perfectionism ended up wearing them out. However, it makes for a rewarding listen. The arrangements are colored beyond borders, with unpredictable and eclectic instrumentation. Cell Phones Dead starts with kitchen sink percussion and Tarzan howls before kicking into sick bass synthesizer straight out of peak Herbie Hancock. Turntable scratches and sound effects litter the landscape, and over an insistent in-the-pocket beat, Beck raps about modern technological anxieties. There's people phoning it in like it's unlimited minutes, going through the motions just to say that they did it. Treadmills running underneath their feet so they feel like they're going somewhere, but they're not. On the chorus he croons, "Cell phones dead, lost in the desert," with a ghostly harmony joining. The juxtaposition makes you question whether we can ever really unplug from the Matrix. As the sample says in the track, this jam is real. Cell Phones Dead is an unconventional banger where Beck brings his baggage of insecurities to the dance floor. At number 7, we have Girl from Guero. After Sea Change was released, Beck wrote over 30 songs that were in the same vein, but more musically adventurous. He recorded the demos and kept them in a suitcase. One fateful night, the tapes were left backstage, and he was never able to track them down. Obviously, it was a big blow. Beck had said he felt the songs were evolved and complex. After a while, he decided it might be best to take a break from the troubadour songwriting and work on a bunch of unfinished tunes that had existed since Odelay, and called up his old friends the Dust Brothers to get involved. The Guero sessions would last 9 months, where Beck and the brothers worked on about 16 songs. Girl would be issued as the 3rd single of the LP. It originally was titled Summer Girl, and Beck would say the song began as such a chipper tune lyrically that he had to paint it black to make the dichotomy work for him. It starts with video game chiptune, before twangy slide guitar and sprightly snappy drums carry the momentum. The production is lean. Everything extraneous is cut out on the verses, which makes the dreamy background vocals and featherweight keyboard during the chorus hit even harder. The chorus line is heavily debated, and created that way by Beck. In the liner notes, it simply states, "my blank girl." Sometimes it seems clear as, "my sun-eyed girl," while in live sessions, it could be heard as, "my cyanide girl." The melody is so bright and bubbly that the chorus comes off as sinister and sunny synchronously. Girl is a bouncy blast of power pop with a question mark sing-along chorus. At number 6, we have Loser from Mellow Gold. After his brief time in NYC, Beck played whatever coffeehouse gigs and open mics he could find in LA, sometimes even jumping up on stage to play a song while other bands were setting up. As luck would have it, at a small gig, Tom Rothrock and Rob Schnauf caught his show and were interested enough to sign them to their small label, Bong Load Records, in 1991. As Beck was a fan of hip-hop, the two introduced him to Carl Stevenson, a producer who had worked with the Ghetto Boys. During a session at Stevenson's house, Loser would be tossed off in a few hours. The basis of the track was a short guitar part from one of Beck's earliest ideas, recorded on an 8-track and then looped. When Carl added a drum sample to the slide guitar, both of them saw some potential in the bluesy beat. Stevenson would incorporate his own sitar playing and other samples while Beck sprang into action, freestyling the lyrics, attempting his best Chuck D impression. When Beck heard his verses back, he thought, "Man, I'm the worst rapper in the world. I'm just a loser." So he decided to own it and came up with the iconic hook of the chorus. While the two enjoyed the session, Beck didn't think much of the song and went back to working on his folk material. On Rothrock's insistence, Bong Load released Loser as a single, only pressing 500 copies, and unexpectedly, it caught fire on alternative and college radio. Beck would go from being totally broke and living in a rundown shed to signing with a major label to help push the song and record his next full-length album. While Loser was originally seen as a goofy one-off novelty song, it has surprising staying power due to its infectious, self-deprecating chorus. The lyrics were completely off the dome, and its random word association only adds to its silly appeal. Its tongue-in-cheek white boy blues would be heavily imitated, but it was Beck's noticeable love of all types of music that would truly transform it into something special. On Loser, Beck managed to channel the 90s zeitgeist and create a Gen X anthem that launched his career. And while he became labeled a one-hit wonder, that would only embolden his creative voice. At number 5, we have Que Onda Guero from Guero. Beck Hansen grew up in a working-class neighborhood where Koreatown meets Westlake near downtown Los Angeles. Being a heavily Hispanic district, he was the only white kid at his school. To diffuse tense situations, a teenage Beck learned to breakdance, but feeling like an outcast, he dropped out after junior high. He would apply to a performing arts high school, only to be rejected. He would further his learning by basically hacking Los Angeles Community College, by getting a fake ID to sit in on classes and browse the library's record and sheet music collection. Beck described Que Ando as a warm, oil-slick portrait of a predominantly Latino immigrant hood, and the title is roughly translated as "What's up, white boy?" Honking horns bring the sounds of the street to life over the Dust Brothers' old-school simple beat that provides a hydraulic bounce with turntable scratches keeping the vibe fly. Beck shouts out the Abuelitas with plastic bags, the Vendedoras, and the Mango Ladies, among a colorful backdrop of locals that yell jovially over. It's a very curious community, always in his business, asking him in the chorus, "Guero, where are you going?" His friend Paolo is simply credited as Dude, and he talks in spoken interludes about playing a little football in the park, switching from Spanish to English like a true second-gen American. And Beck seems like he's having a blast, spitting specific rhymes about the old days that paints quite a vibrant picture of his slice of LA, bustling, loud, and undeniably full of life. Que Ando is a barrio bump and grind love letter to the City of Angels and a colorful Angelino block party. At number 4, we have The New Pollution from Odelay. After the massive success of Loser, Beck would start the sessions for his follow-up as a subdued, mainly acoustic record. At the time, he was experiencing a lot of death close to him, so he wrote somber acoustic tunes with Bongload producers Rob Schnapf and Tom Rothrock. That collection would go unrealized. He would select Ramshackle from those sessions and began what would become known as Odelay, working with producers the Dust Brothers, King Gizmo, John King, and Easy Mike Simpson. The duo were particularly known for Paul's Boutique, the oddball crate-digging sample fest from the Beastie Boys that remains a landmark rap record. Odelay turned from folk to fun with the brothers on board. The sessions would be injected with a layered hip-hop feel, full of obscure breaks and samples. The album would be recorded in 2 chunks, with a national tour in the middle. After resuming sessions, the team had a comfortable familiarity and rolled through the remaining songs. The New Pollution and Devil's Haircut would be completed on back-to-back days. On The New Pollution, Beck plays all the instruments, from the tax band borrowed bass line to the funky clavinet, while the Dust Brothers cut and paste from random sources, plucking the drum beat from a forgotten disco burner, the saxophone line from a smooth 70s jazz gem, and the strange opening family choir from a rare religious 45. Beck would say most of the vocals on the record were scratch vocals that they grew attached to, and the song features wonderfully weird lines about paradise camouflage, lily white cavity crazes, and drunken rivers. The offbeat words flow over an unstoppable groove that half 60s beach rave and half funk soul review, as Beck seems in the tractor beam of a toxic female as he croons, "She's alone in the new pollution." The New Pollution jams with a pop and lock loop and a bubbling, irrepressible bass line that proved the man the media dubbed the king of the slackers had a brand new bag. At number 3, we have Lost Cause from Sea Change. After the Midnight Vultures tour, Beck discovered his fiancée was having an affair, which ended their 9-year relationship. He was understandably heartbroken, and while wounded and introspective, he would write the majority of Sea Change's 12 songs in the span of a week. It was more for the therapeutic value, though, as he had no plans to release them. He wanted to avoid airing out his dirty laundry and being self-indulgent. However, he would reconsider and decide that the tunes spoke to a common experience. After all, who hasn't had a bad breakup? As Beck circled back to the material, he called Nigel Godrich to produce. Like their sessions for Mutations, he intended to record 1 song per day, but due to the song's detailed orchestrations, they would end up taking at least 2 days. A band of close compatriots were assembled, and most of the album was recorded live in the studio, with effects and additional arrangements tracked later. In total, recordings lasted a little over 3 weeks. Perhaps due to the solemn national mood following the 9/11 terrorist attacks, Sea Change struck a nerve. Lost Cause announced the LP's bleak, depressing ambiance. Simple steel acoustic strumming and soft brush drumming lead a melancholic sway. Light electronic flourishes enhance a wistful daydreaming feel, as Beck's vocals sound sedated. He's resigned that their love is faded, and he's tired of fighting for lost cause. Beck would later release a project called Song Reader, comprised of sheet music intended to be played by others, because of his appreciation for the great American songbook. Lost Cause is very much set in that traditional vein, its universal heartbreak easily worn by any aching soul. As you'll see, this is the only tune on the list from what I endearingly refer to as Bummer Beck. However, his sincere folk side is still well worth diving into. Lost Cause is the very best of his slow acoustic material. It's a bittersweet farewell with a beautiful sadness and a tender melody. At number 2, we have Nicotine and Gravy from Midnight Vultures. In the summer of 1998, the sessions that would birth Midnight Vultures were underway in Beck's home in Pasadena. Working titles for the LP included Zatyricon and I Could Smell the VD in the Club Tonight. And it was originally intended to be a double album. So many tracks would be recorded that 25 nearly completed songs would be cut when it was decided to trim it down to a single serving. Beck and producer-engineers Mickey Petralia and Tony Hoffer looked to contemporary R&B and hip-hop for inspiration, and the clear directive was to make an up-tempo album that would remain fun to play night after night. The band members basically lived at Beck's house, where they had communal meals and mountain biked nearby. Several rooms were set up with computers for recording, so multiple songs were often worked on at once. Beck said that Nicotine and Gravy was originally 3 or 4 songs smashed together, which is hardly shocking considering how many hooks it has. His father, David Campbell, plays viola on the track and helped to arrange the mirror ball string dynamics that dramatically dance around the dirty beat. While the squad were specifically inspired by R. Kelly, it's really Prince who immediately comes to mind. Beck slurs ludicrous come-ons. I'll feed you fruit that don't exist. I'll draw graffiti where you've never been kissed. That would make his royal badness proud. Subwoofer thumping bass keeps the energy lively. And when the I think we're going crazy breakdown hits, it's damn near impossible not to get down with your bad self. Nicotine and Gravy is a colorfully cryptic dance floor rager designed to make you move and get your hands in the air. At number 1, we have Where It's At from Odelay. With its slick Wurlitzer riff and finger-snapping beat, Where It's At sounds so laid back and cool that Beck makes it look deceptively easy. However, on Odelay, he and the Dust Brothers put in the work. They spent weeks laboring on each track. Most had written Beck off as a flash in the pan, so there was no real pressure for his follow-up. The team's thirst for perfection, though, would lead them to work 16-hour days to fill each song with auditory Easter eggs. Beck never wanted to repeat himself, but he didn't want to alienate the fans he gained from Loser either. So he envisioned Where It's At as the bridge connecting his calling card and his new album. It manages to feel both retro and modern, with a needle dragging along scratchy vinyl for an old-school boombox beat, and Beck flowing like the Nile, pulling out jives and jamboree hand jobs. He struts over a rhythm that is shaggy, loose, and richly detailed. Money Mark, who often played with the Beastie Boys, lays down smooth organ, and soulful Stax horns echo that unmistakable doo-wop melody. The infectious call and response chorus gets the crowd involved, as our MCs shout, "Where it's at!" Half a question, half a declarative statement that could only be answered proudly by, "I've got 2 turntables and a microphone." It projects big block party energy, made to get the crowd hyped. On the Odelay tour, Beck would earn his reputation as a live dynamo, and Where It's At is a big reason why. It nearly always closed out shows in epic fashion, vamping the groove with the band, inviting the audience to dance on the stage, and ending each gig in a giddy, genuine celebration. On Where It's At, Beck honors the power of music to bring people together, heal minds, raise endorphins, and shake booties. It's a can't-miss party starter that still bangs nearly 30 years later. Where It's At is a feel-good funk workout that remains eternally fresh, and it's Beck at his very best. And now, I'll add 2 more songs that almost made the list. The first near miss would be Sex Laws. As the opening track for Midnight Vultures, Sex Laws kicks off the album with propulsive fanfare. Beck would equate it with Monday Night Football, with the triumphant horns rushing in like game day, sprinting around the spirited shuffle. The song is full of swagger, as longtime ally Smokey Hormel plays rhythmic guitar licks, and Justin Meldell Johnson keeps his fretboard busy with some bubbly bass lines. On the chorus, Beck wails, "I wanna defy the logic of our sex laws," railing against the squares of society and their attempts to herd us into a binary box. Sex Laws is a swinging, sex-positive, gender-bending fight song and top-tier Beck. The other to nearly make the list is Devil's Haircut. The Odelay sessions involved a lot of Beck and the Dust Brothers listening to old records for inspiration. And one day, the team came upon the tune I Can Only Give You Everything by them, Van Morrison's original band. Beck mentioned he loved the guitar sound and picked up a guitar and played the song's intro riff. While many of the sounds off the LP are samples, the stinging guitar riff from Devil's Haircut is a loop of Beck playing. The lyrics are purposely vague, so much so that he joked, "What was that song about?" when he guest starred on Futurama. It hardly matters with the driving momentum. Devil's Haircut mixes Delta blues with b-boy breaks to make a disorienting, masterful collage of music. Purists would often decry the use of samples as a lazy way to create, but on Odelay, vintage sounds were used as springboards to make utterly unique creations. Devil's Haircut rocks hard, with heavy metal riffage and unparalleled cut-and-paste wizardry, and it deserves to be mentioned among his best. Finally, let's talk about what I consider to be Beck's most overrated song, and that would be Wow. It's not exactly his most popular track or anything, but the wacky music video is top 5 in views on YouTube. And when I saw him a few months ago on the excellent Summer Odyssey tour, the audience really perked up when that beat dropped. Unfortunately, the energy would wane, because Wow does not translate well to stage. It's not a shock, hip-hop shows are incredibly hit or miss, and the song really just sounds like them queuing up backup tracks while he raps over the recording. The band playfully mimes along, but come on, that's coming straight from the PA. Beck didn't even think much of Wow when he made it. He recalled coming up with a floating flute trap loop and spontaneously coming up with the freeform rhymes in the verses and the "like wow" refrain. He said he honestly forgot about the track, but when the label asked him to send over songs he was working on, Wow was the song they singled out, which surprised him. While Beck is certainly known for his lyrical mumbo-jumbo, the lyrics for Wow are basically gibberish, until he decides to throw in that earnest YOLO message on the bridge. The vibe is a good time, with its huge EDM drops, but it feels more like an incomplete sketch. Apparently, Beck had intended to get Chance the Rapper for a guest verse, but that never came to fruition. There was even a remix version featuring Lil Yachty spitting flames. However, that was never released either. Collaborating on the track probably would have added some extra energy. As is, the song sounds like there's something missing. For an artist that is constantly evolving and reinventing himself, Wow comes off as weak paint-by-numbers Beck. The track is not terrible, but its message is about as hollow as it sounds at his live shows. I'll gamely dance along at the gig, but honestly, there are dozens of songs I'd rather hear. I can't help but think it's a little overrated. As you're still watching, I wanted to share a deep cut as well. For that, I'm shining a light on Electric Music and the Summer People. The tune was recorded both during the sessions for Odelay and for Mutations, but not included on either. It was part of a Japan-exclusive compilation, Stray Blues, and would later be included in the expanded version of Odelay, 12 years after the original release. Obviously, Beck thought it was a good enough song to record it twice, but in his eyes, it never was worthy of being put on a proper album, which is a shame. It's a great tune. Both versions are fantastic, but have drastically different arrangements. Personally, I prefer the Mutations era take. True to its title, it's cheery and full of sunshine. A clean drum clap and a galloping bass line propel the verses, surrounded by sublime harmonies and bursts of psychedelic sitar. The chorus opens up and boogies down, with 60s electric organ and honky-tonk piano, as Beck cheerily sings, "Let's not be like anyone else." Electric Music and the Summer People deserves better than being cut from 2 albums. Instead, it remains buried among Beck's many B-sides. If you haven't heard it, you should add it to your playlist. So there you have it. That was undeniably the top 10 best Beck songs. So, how wrong was I? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What's your top 3? Do you think Wow is one of his best songs? Let me know. And if there's any artists you'd like to see me rank, let me know in the comments below. Hope you stick around, and thank you for watching. Delicate acoustic wild guard. Machismo mingles with the meditative. Meditative. Machismo mingles with the meditative. Beck would. Meditative. Meditative. Okay. Machismo mingles with the meditative.
Meditative. Meditative. How you add like a syllable. Meditative. Meditative. Meditative.
After his while the Scod were Scod? As our MCs after taking a break, he decided it might be best to take after taking a break, he decided it might be best to take a break.
Yes, you did put that, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
You didn't hear it the first time, but I was like, I guess it's fine.
After taking a break, he took a break.
He took another break.
He took a break from the break.
He took a break from the break. get his head into the break that he had originally taken.
Where does the break start? Where does it end? Nobody
He's
knows.
still on that break from that break from that break.